Hello, welcome to the Stone Evolution's only hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon X. In this game, there are thankfully quite a good selection of Pokemon to work with in this rule set, now shown on the screen. Also, obtaining the stones needed for the evolutions themselves would also be made easier due to the super training function, not to mention EV training itself. Now then, let's get the rules out of the way. Number 1. Any Pokemon that faints must be permaboxed. Number 2. I can only catch the first relevant encounter in each area. Number 3. No items during battles. Number 4. I can't overlevel. Number 5. I have to set the battle mode to set. And number 6. I can't use any Mega Evolutions. The starter choice in this run wouldn't really matter, since it would be boxed pretty quickly after starting the game. Before we start, I just want to say a brief thank you to all that subscribed from my last video. It really does mean a lot to me that you find my videos entertaining and worth watching. With that said, if you belong to the 94% here, do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. I'll be posting more contents like these. Or you can post a roast to boost the algorithm. That works too. Now that that's out of the way, welcome again to the Stone Evolution's only hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon X. As we dive into the world of Pokemon once more, we were greeted by Professor Sycamore, who've heard of our arrival in Vanderbilt. We name our character Fool once again because that's what we are. At the end of the day, we're all fools. We woke up, got dressed, and headed outside. Oh my god, what happened to the textures? We met Shauna and neighbor Serena, where we got acquainted with each other. We were invited to this juvenile meeting in Aqua Court Town, where we met Tyranno and Mushroom. Apparently they needed a nickname for us, and I just went with F. Meister. When it was time to pick the starter, I went with Froakie, since who wouldn't go for this adorable little guy? Anyway, he was named Gone Too Soon. We were challenged by Shauna for our first ever Pokemon battle, and this went pretty much just as you guys would expect it to be. Complete annihilation. We said our goodbyes to our mom and ventured on our journey. Over at Santaloon Forest, we met our first Pokemon, a Panpour. Since some of you guys have been roasting my nickname choices, I decided to change it up a bit and jazz it up. You guys are going to love this. So, with Panpopo as our official starter, we continued on our adventure. And by that, I mean grinding out the proper EV for Panpopo and super training. Before long, we got our first evolution stone, the Water Stone. We progressed through the forest and made it out with the whole gang. Not long after that, we got our second team member, a Pikachu. He would be named Pikapopo. You guys see where I'm going with this nicknaming theme? No Kalos adventure is complete without clothes shopping, so we spent a fair bit of money on a new hat, even though we're broke as And even with no money, we got a free pair of skates from this lady because we beat her in a Pokemon battle. Snazzy. After a bit of grinding, we challenged Bug Lady for our first gym. Nothing much to say here because of Pikapopo's type advantage, but this battle was pretty easy because of him. With that, we acquired our first gym badge in Kalos. This journalist gave us the EXP share, but we wouldn't be using it for this run. Before we got to Lumio City, we were stopped by Sina and Dexio, who were assistants to Professor Sycamore. At Route 4 though, I managed to score a pretty rare Ralts encounter, who only has a 5% chance of popping out. And he was a male, which was the perfect Ralts for the Stone Evolution's only run. We caught it and named it Gapopo. We made it to Professor Sycamore in Lumio City and battled his team of Generation 1 starters. I opened with Gapopo, who finished off the Bulbasaur with 2 confusions. I switched for Pikapopo, who finished off the Squirtle, and later Panpopo, who ended the fight by taking out the Charmander. We then had to choose a Gen 1 starter, so I just went with a Charmander who I named Stinky, and boxed it later. Lisandra made his first appearance in the game, already talking smack about making this world a better place. We met him again 5 minutes after that with Actress Lady, the Kalos renowned celebrity. At Route 5, we had to battle Tyranno, who only had a Corphish, so it was an easy win for Pikapopo. After, we had to go through a bit of plot with Shauna and the whole castle bit, but we were able to catch another team member at Route 6. We caught a Honedge and named it Sapopo. We played some hide and seek with the Furfro and watched the fireworks with Shauna, who apparently had never watched fireworks with a boy before. To avoid the Shauna cooties, we quickly left the castle. Over at Route 7, we caught yet another team member, a Flabebe. She was named Flipopo. After battling one of the trainers in Route 7, Gapopo was able to evolve into a male Kirlia. Nice. Mushroom caught up with us and introduced the Battle Chateau. At this point, we didn't have any use for it, but it was convenient for grinding later on in the game. Down the road, Serena forced us to have a double battle against Tyranno and Mushroom. This was pretty easy as well. After learning Scald, I decided to slap a Water Stone on Panpopo, making him evolve into a Simipour. And since there was no point delaying Gapopo's evolution, I grinded for the Dust Stone with Super Training. After getting one, Gapopo achieved his final form, a Glade. We then had to go through a bunch more plot related to Mega Evolution, and we did get to ride a pretty cool Rhyhorn. At Route 9, we caught a Helioptile and named it Helpopo. And over at Glittering Cave, we had our first altercations with Team Flare, but they were also pretty uneventful. Just before the second gym, Flapopo evolved into a Floette. And whenever there's a new clothing shop, we of course went shopping. Priorities. After all the plot, it was finally time for the second badge. We faced off against Rock Climbing Dude, who led Amora. I led Gapopo, who had a pretty easy time with Rock Smash. The Tyrant was also pretty easy, as it died to more Rock Smashes. We bagged an easy second badge and moved on. At Route 10, I was really surprised that I got an Eevee as the first encounter, even though Eevee has a really low encounter rate. I couldn't catch it with a Pokeball, so I had to use a Great Ball. Nevertheless, the Eevee was caught and named Fire Popo. As you can guess by the name, I decided to evolve this Eevee into a Flareon. I only had 3 choices between the stone evolutions, and I already had water and electric types covered. With Flare Blitz in the game, surely a Flareon can't be that bad, right? We fought through more Team Flare before Geosenge Town, and Fire Popo was making himself useful. And then this guy had a real gem of an insight. Before we could leave this town of stones, Skater Girl stopped us for a battle with her 2 Lucarios. Gapopo had the type advantage and ended another fight with more Rock Smashes. Right after at Route 11, we spent a fair amount of time looking for our next encounter, a Nidoran, one of my favorite Pokemon line to use. It came in hordes, so I had to carefully choose one to catch it. We finally caught it, naming it Nidopopo. After training for a bit, Nidopopo evolved into a Nidorino. Following his teammate, Pikapopo evolved into a Raichu not long after. We found a Moonstone in Reflection Cave, so it saved me some time from the super training grind. The gang reunited once more in Shallow City, ready to investigate more about Mega Evolution. We ended up having to battle Serena for the Mega Bracelet, something that I would have been glad to give to her. Anyway, she let her Meowstic and I let Sopopo. Sopopo used a Shadow Sneak first as the Meowstic fired back with a Psybeam. The Psybeam didn't do much, and a Shadow Claw in the next turn took out the Psychic Cat. Serena sent out her Absol next, so I switched to Gapopo. Gapopo tanked a bite on the switch-in, but it didn't do much against Gapopo. Gapopo used Rock Smash and took out the Emo Absol in one go. Verkiliden was next, and I switched for Fire Popo. Although he got bit on the switch-in, Fire Popo shrugged it off and hit back with a Fire Fang, which nearly took out the Kiliden. The next bite hit a critical, which honestly made me jump a bit. But Fire Popo held on and finished the fight with strength. I think this was the first close call of the run so far. With the quarrel over the Mega Bracelet over, it was time to face Skater Girl in battle for the 3rd gym badge. Upon inspecting her Pokemon list and moves, I found that none of her moves can even hit a Ghost type. So I sent out Sopopo, knowing she literally can't be damaged at all. Sopopo stacked 3 Sword Dances and repeatedly hit Shadow Claws until all of Skater Girl's Pokemon were done. Honestly, the gyms are really underwhelming up until this point. Skater Girl told us to meet her at the top of the tower, so we had no choice but to go up there and see what she wants. Apparently, she wanted us to battle her again, this time with the Lucario and Mega Evolution involved. I did say no Mega Evolutions, but I had no choice, I guess. This was supposed to be the showcase moment of the feature. For the 2 of you who haven't tried out Mega Evolution before, here's what they look like. We won the battle, of course, and Skater Girl offered the Lucario to us. I didn't really want to take it, but I don't know if you can really refuse this Lucario at this point. It was named Psyche. Serena gave us Surf on the way out of Shallur, and we moved on with our lives. It was time for another stone, and this time it was the Moonstone. Nidopopo evolved into a Nidoking. As we arrive in Coumarine, Serena wanted another battle. This was where the rival battles really started to pick up. Before we could take the train to the gym, we bump into Professor Sycamore and his love affair. Something was definitely fishy. At the Coumarine gym, it was time for the Serena fight. Her team is exactly the same as the last time around, so my strategy remained unchanged. Sopopo for the Meowstic, Gapopo for the Absol, and Fire Popo for the Killadine. Then, it was time for the 4th gym battle with this old man. He sent out his Jumpluff first, and I led with my boy, Nidopopo. Nidopopo had Black Sludge as his health item, meaning he can heal after every turn. Nidopopo blasted a lot of Venushocks as the old man wasted his healing items on his Jumpluff. Following his Jumpluff's defeat, he sent out his Go-Goat and Nidopopo continued blasting Venushocks. The Bulldoze from the Go-Goat scared me for a bit, but Nidopopo was able to fight through it. After 2 Venushocks, the goat went down. Last was his Weepinbell, and I switched to Fire Popo because of Weepinbell's poison resistance. After getting hit by Acid on the switch-in, Fire Popo ended the fight with a Fire Fang, securing us the 4th gym badge. Lysandra called us on the holo clip just to say, "Hey, I heard you can Mega Evolve now. That's cool." We got the Fly HM, but no friend to fly on. So, we welcomed Staravia, the Fly Slave. We flew back to Lumio City to buy the TM for Bulldoze and wanted to shop for a bit. But we were turned away because we were too much of a pleb. We also got a haircut, but I didn't really like it, so I paid for 2 haircuts that resulted in the same style. After a bit of grinding, Supopo was able to evolve into a Doublade. From here on out, we had to clear out Team Flare from the power plant. We beat Team Flare Aliana's Mightyena easily with Gopopo, and were introduced to the 2 poorly disguised mass heroes for the first time in the game. Their disguise can only fool Ash Ketchum, and that's on a good day. After restoring power back to Lumiose, we encountered the strange tall man who endlessly wandered around Kalos. Not creepy at all. As we make our way back to Lumiose, we met up with Shauna again, and oh my god, what happened to the textures again? We finished Bonnie's quizzes to get through the gym, and could finally challenge the nerd kid for the 5th gym. He led Emolga, and I once again led Nidopopo. Somehow, Nidopopo was faster than the Emolga, and hit first with a Rock Tomb for decent damage. The Emolga hit back with an Aerial Ace, which practically did nothing. One Rock Tomb later, the Emolga was finished. Nerd Kid sent out his Magneton next, and from here on onwards, Nidopopo just spammed Bulldoze while healing bit by bit with his Black Sludge. The Heliolisk that came after also got decimated by Bulldoze. Another gym badge obtained with not much trouble. After the gym, we went to Lisandro's lab to learn that Lisandro is a great man. At Route 14, we had to battle Serena again. Her team was still the same with the exception of her fully evolved starter. So the strategy remained the same as Supopo, Gopopo, and Firepopo mopped up her team. Firepopo almost died again though. The gang went to some haunted house, but it turned out to be an old guy trying to make some money. Not far from the haunted house, we caught a Poliwag and named it Polypopo. Lavera City had a clothing store, so we bought new boots. Oh yeah, look at these boots. Anyway, time for the 6th gym, Fairy Lady with Scary Eyes. She let her Mawile, so I sent Nidopopo out. This battle turned out to be a battle of attrition, as Fairy Lady with Scary Eyes kept trying to heal. Nidopopo spammed Bulldoze, eventually downing the Mawile. Fairy Lady with Scary Eyes sent out her female Mr. Mime next, and I switched to Supopo. The Mr. Mime went for a Reflect, and Supopo attacked with a Shadow Claw, leaving the Mr. Mime's health in the orange. The Mr. Mime hit a Psychic, but was finished with a Shadow Claw after. The Sylveon was sent out next, and I switched back to Nidopopo. From here, it was pretty much just another Venoshock spam until the Sylveon went down. We got the badge and got the hell out of there before Fairy Lady with Scary Eyes tried to hypnotize us. We got called to the Pokeball factory and cleaned up Team Flare over there as well. Nidopopo took part in the double battle against Team Flare scientists and had a pretty swell time. We were given the Master Ball after, as well as a big nugget. This nugget would come in handy for our clothes shopping. Over at Route 15, we got a Murkrow, who was named Crowpopo. And over at the Lost Hotel, we caught a Litwick, who was bestowed the name Shanpopo. After learning Iron Head, it was time to evolve Supopo. I slapped a Dust Stone at her, and she evolved into an Aegislash. At Route 16, we met this beast of a Pokemon, Lombre. We caught the Lombre and named it Ludipopo. With all these new additions to the team, I was quite torn on how I was going to train them. I didn't want to use the Battle Chateau at first since it could get quite cheesy, but in the interest of saving time, I ended up having to train there. The Furisode Audino girls show up quite often, and they're good EXP. To finish up Crowpopo's training, we got another Dust Stone from the Super Training feature. We applied the stone and Crowpopo evolved into a Honchkrow. Following Crowpopo, Shampopo evolved into a Lampent despite having nearly died multiple times in the Battle Chateau. On our way to the Frost Cavern, we met this really angry Mamoswine. After beating yet another Team Flare scientist with Pampopo, who hasn't made an appearance in a while, we made friends with an Obamasnow. We talked to the Obamasnow and were given an Obama site. While trying to mind our own business, we were challenged yet again by Serena, who just can't give up. Arriving in Annistar City, this really nice Hex Maniac lady gave us a Flamethrower TM, which was immediately used for Shampopo. And here we are, yet again, battling our rival. She let her Meowstic again, and I let Crowpopo this time. She opened with Fake Out, which left Crowpopo flinched. Next turn, the Meowstic hit first with a Disarming Voice, which was super effective against Crowpopo. Crowpopo used a Feint Attack in return, which was so close to taking out the Meowstic in one hit. Crowpopo nearly died to the next Disarming Voice, but was able to take down the Meowstic with a Wing Attack. Serena sent out her Vaporeon next, and I switched to Pikapopo. Pikapopo tanked a Quick Attack, but it barely did anything. The next turn, Pikapopo let out a Thunderbolt, which couldn't one-shot the Vaporeon. The Vaporeon hit back with an Aurora Beam, which surprisingly did a lot of damage to Pikapopo. No matter though, Pikapopo scored another Thunderbolt and did his part. Next was her Chestnut, and I sent out Supopo since the Chestnut didn't have any moves that could seriously damage Supopo. I set up Sword Dances while the Chestnut tried to Seed Bomb Supopo, and finally took it down with an Iron Head. The Absol came out next and wasted his turn on a Sword Dance, so Supopo also took it out with an Iron Head. Serena needs to give up, she won't ever win against this fool. The next battle was against Spandex Lady, who holds a Psychic type team. For some reason, her first two Pokemon were weak to electric type attacks, so Pikapopo had a really easy time one-shotting the Sigilyph and Slowking. She sent out her Meowstic next, and Crowpopo took charge and spammed feint attacks until it was dead. Easy win for the 7th gym badge, and this team were looking nice and snazzy. After the gym, Lysandre announced his wicked ways and wicked plans, and it was up to us to stop him from accomplishing his wicked schemes. We headed off to Lysandre Cafe and bullied the two employees there for the password, and headed in to face off against Lysandre himself for the first time. He sent out his Mienfoo first, and I led Gapopo. Gapopo easily took care of the Mienfoo with a Psycho Cut, and Lysandre sent out his Murkrow next. I switched to Pikapopo, who took minimal damage on the switch-in and got his Murkrow paralyzed because of static. Pikapopo fired off a Thunderbolt and downed the bird in one shot. Lysandre's Gyarados suffered a similar fate, going down to a Thunderbolt. Last was his Pyroar, and I switched to Nidopopo, who was able to take out the fire line with 2 earth powers. Lysandre told us that one of his 4 scientists hold the elevator key, so we beat all of them up as well. Aliana, Celosia, Bryony, and lastly, Mabel. They were all pretty short and easy fights, but it turned out Mabel had the key. Figures. We chucked the key in the elevator and found that Lysandre had indeed taken the creepy tall man captive. We got close and he just started spinning a tail, which kind of had a weird pacing to it. It was also unskippable. After listening to the longest cutscene ever, Lysandre left us to fight Zerosich, an extremely pasty looking dude. He could definitely use some flair of the sun. See what I did there? No? Okay. Zerosich had a Crobat and Melamar, which couldn't hold a candle to Pikapopo's Thunderbolts. We were given a choice of 2 pills, no, buttons, and we chose the right one because of the Bulbapedia guide. It didn't matter though, as Zerosich went ahead and activated the ultimate weapon anyway. We immediately flew to Geosenge and beat up the Grunt Guard aside, facing off with Lysandre again. Somehow, 2 of his Pokemon evolved during the time we were apart. He sent out his Mienshao first, so I led Nidopopo. In a surprising turn of events, Nidopopo outsped the Mienshao and one-shotted it with an Earth Power. That was nice. Lysandre sent out his Gyarados next, and I actually misclicked here as I sent out Crowpopo. I panicked and hurried up to switch Pikapopo in as Crowpopo almost died. Pikapopo took a significant amount of damage on the switch-in, but managed to one-shot the Gyarados. Next was Lysandre's Pyroar, so I switched back to Nidopopo, who tanked a Fire Blast on the switch-in. Nidopopo used Earth Power and it was a one-shot. Last was his Honchkrow, which Nidopopo also killed in one hit. Nidopopo, you beauty. We then had to go through the Team Flare infested hallway, and Shauna came to help in the end, leaving us to battle 4 grunts. After all that, it was time to expose ourselves to the majestic side of Kalos' legendary Aura Pokemon. Of course it got Master Balled. We named it Zernibutt. Lysandre wasn't too happy about what happened and came in looking like Robocop on steroids. We faced off once more, ready to end it all with Team Flare. He led with his Mienshao once again, and we got down and boogied with Gapopo. Gapopo struck first with Psycho Cut and scored an easy win. His Honchkrow was next, and I switched to Pikapopo. Pikapopo tanked an aerial ace, but it didn't do too much. Like in the previous meetings, Pikapopo one-shotted the bird. Lysandre sent out his Pyroar next, and I switched to Nidopopo. The Pyroar tried a Fire Blast, but it missed. 1 Earth Power later, it was dead. Next was Lysandre's last Pokemon, his Gyarados. Here, I made a grave mistake. I thought Nidopopo was leveled high enough that he could one-shot the Gyarados, so I kept him on, and went for a Thunderbolt. I made a grave mistake, and it cost me dearly. The Gyarados survived the Thunderbolt and hit back with an Aqua Jet and one-shot Nidopopo. This was our first loss of the run, and it hit quite badly as well. Nidopopo was going to be my ace for the rest of the game, and we had to bid farewell to him so early. Nevertheless, I sent out Pikapopo to close the fight with a Thunderbolt. I didn't even pay attention as the following cutscenes rolled, as I was just too bummed about Nidopopo's passing. We met with the tall wandering man again, who had apparently gotten away from the prison in Lumiose. Rest well, Nidopopo, you absolute beast of a specimen. Picking ourselves up from the loss of a friend, we slapped a dust stone on Shampopo, evolving it into a Chandelure. Over at Kuriway Town, Professor Sycamore challenged us to a fight with his fully evolved Gen 1 starters. He started with his Venusaur, and I still had Sapopo in the first slot, so I had to switch to Shampopo. Shampopo was able to take it out with 1 flamethrower. Next was his Blastoise, so I switched to Pikapopo. He easily dealt with the Blastoise, as well as the Charizard that followed after. Here I experimented a bit with the team building, and decided to evolve Flapopo into a Florges. And unfortunately, I made another lapse of judgment. I don't know why, but I guess I had been playing for too long and I wasn't taking enough breaks. At this point in the game, Shauna, Tierno, and Mushroom all challenge us in a Pokemon battle without breaks. I was caught a bit unprepared for this, as I didn't know at which spot exactly they turned up. First up was Shauna, as she led her Delcatty. I still had Fire Popo in my first slot, but that was no problem. Even though Fire Popo was hit with debuffs, he was still able to take out the Delcatty. Next up was her Gudra, and I switched to Flapopo. Flapopo hit with a Moonblast first, which did a nice chunk. Gudra's Sludge Wave nearly gave me a heart attack, but Flapopo survived. One more Moonblast hit sealed the deal. Her Delphox was last, and I switched to Panpopo, who tanked a chunky Psychic hit. The Delphox was one-shotted with a Surf. Next was Tierno, who gave us no time to think. His Talonflame was up first, and I couldn't change Fire Popo from the first slot. I switched to Pika Popo, who resisted an Acrobatics hit. Thankfully, Pika Popo, being the beast that he is, took out the bird with one Thunderbolt. His Rose Raid was next, and I switched to Gapopo. The Petal Dance on the switching was bearable, and one Psycho Cut did the trick. At level 59, Gapopo learned Close Combat, which he used in the next turn against Tierno's Crawdaunt, and in the fight. Last up was Mushroom, who was kind enough to heal our Pokemon beforehand. He sent out his Raichu first, and I decided to just duke it out with Fire Popo. Fire Popo dished out multiple Fire Fangs, taking out the Raichu after getting paralyzed. Next was Mushroom's Aerodactyl, and I sent out Panpopo, who dodges Supersonic. Panpopo used the Surf and one-shot at the fossil Pokemon. Last was the Florges, and I realized I took out Supopo the Aegislash for my team. After some deliberation, I switched to Pika Popo, who was able to take down the Florges' health down to orange, and I switched back to Panpopo. Here, I really thought Panpopo would be able to take down the Florges with a Surf, but I was dead wrong. The Florges survived the hit, and Panpopo went down to a Moonblast. Here, I lost my starter. This sucked bad. I switched back to Pika Popo and ended the fight with Thunderbolt. Kids, take it from me. Take frequent breaks so that you don't make errors and lapses in judgment like I did. I know I could have played it better, but I was getting impatient because I've been playing for too long without breaks. Rest well, buddy. You've been great. To fill the void of Panpopo's departure to the afterlife, we evolved Ludipopo into a Ludicolo. We also bought new pants and a new bag as a coping mechanism. The last gym with Scary Iceman was a total snooze fest. With Shampopo at the helm, she one-shotted all of Scary Iceman's team with flamethrowers, winning as the last badge needed to qualify for the Pokemon League. One cool thing that came out of his gym was this cool slide out. Nice. And apparently, to go through Victory Road's gate, we need to complete this little test. Gapopo clean house, and we ventured on to complete the last challenge before the Pokemon League. Halfway through Victory Road, Serena caught up to us for the final time. She wanted another battle, and we of course can't refuse. She let her Meowstic for the final time, and I let Crowpopo. Crowpopo was hit by a Fake Out and was flinched for the first turn. Crowpopo hit a Night Slash on the next turn and one-shotted the cat. Her Altaria was next, and I switched to Pika Popo. Pika Popo tanked a Dazzling Gleam on the switch-in, but it was bearable. 3 Thunderbolts later, the Altaria was out. Serena sent out her Vaporeon next, and I switched to Ludipopo. The Vaporeon didn't have anything of value against Ludipopo, and went down to 2 Energy Balls. Next was her Chestnut, and switching to Crowpopo was an easy choice. After tanking a Seed Bomb, a 4-time super effective Wing Attack took down the Chestnut. Last was Serena's Absol, and I switched to Gapopo, who closed the battle with a Close Combat. Serena headed back, and we made the final stretch to the Pokemon League. All ready for the Elite Four? Here are my Popos. Pikapopo the Raichu, Shampopo the Chandelure, Flapopo the Florges, and next we have Supopo the Aegislash, Gapopo the Gallade, and finally, Ludipopo the Ludicolo. We braved ourselves for the Pokemon League Challenge and stepped inside the halls. Oh wait, this isn't it. And we stepped inside the halls. We were greeted by Malva, the Holoclip lady. She said something about us ending Team Flare and looking forward to the fight. If it's a fight she wants, it's a fight she's gonna get. So we went to her first. We watched her chamber light up and stepped up to fight Holoclip lady. She sent out her Pyro first, and I sent out the legendary Ludipopo. Ludipopo sent out a massive Surf and drowned the Lioness in one go. Her Talonflame was next, and I switched to Pikapopo. Pikapopo tanked the Brave Bird well and dished out a Thunderbolt in return. The Talonflame went down easily. Holoclip lady sent out her Torkoal next, and I switched back to Ludipopo. Ludipopo was hit by an Earthquake, but it barely did anything. Ludipopo used Surf, and the Torkoal went to sleep forever. Ludipopo used another Surf, this time on the Chandelure, and the Ghost Pokemon died again, even though it's a ghost. We easily triumphed over the Holoclip lady and moved on to the next Elite Four. We visited the Flood Chamber next and stepped up against Cool Chefman. I love these animations in these Elite Four chambers, they really do feel epic. As epic as the room was, Cool Chefman was a total pushover. Pikapopo totally swept through his team with Thunderbolts, leaving no survivors. Next up was Man in Armor, whose chamber was the lamest of them all. He led a Sklefki, and I sent out Shampopo first. Shampopo used Flamethrower and scored an easy victory against the Fairy type. As expected, Man in Armor sent out his Probopass next, and I switched to the fabled Ludipopo. Because of Probopass's 30, Ludipopo wasn't able to one-shot it multiple times, allowing Man in Armor to waste his healing items on the Probopass. Eventually, he ran out of healing items, and Ludipopo swept the giant nose Pokemon away. I wonder what happens if a Probopass sneezes. Anyway, next up was a Scizor, so I switched back to Shampopo. Shampopo tanked the spikes, as well as the X-Scissor. Shampopo fired off a flamethrower, and scored another point. Man in Armor sent out his Aegislash next, but it suffered a similar fate to his friends. Third Elite Four down, 1 to go. We went up to Dragon Lady with the Ara vibes and started the battle. She led her Dragalge, so I let Gapopo for the type advantage. Gapopo used the Psycho Cut and was able to one-shot the Poison Dragon. Next was her Altaria, so I sent Flipopo out. Flipopo was hit by a Moonblast in the switch-in, which decreased her special attack. From here, Flipopo had to spam Moonblasts because Dragon Lady with the Ara vibes kept healing. Eventually, Flipopo was able to kill off the Altaria. Next up was her Noivern, which was faster than Flipopo. It hit first with an Air Slash and did a nice chunk. The Moonblast almost killed it off, but Flipopo needed another turn. Flipopo managed to kill it in the end, but she only had 57 health left. Last was her Drudigon, and here I made the choice to sack Flipopo. Flipopo fired off her last Moonblast and kicked the bucket. Now hear me out, I sacked Flipopo because I still had my ace, the absolute monster Ludipopo. I sent Ludipopo out and finished the battle with an Ice Beam. With that, we finished all Elite Fours and headed off to the Champion Room. We arrived at the Radiant Chamber and faced off with famous actress Lady again. This time it was for the champion seat. She recognized us as the child from Lumiose and started the battle. She led her Hawlucha and I sent out Gapopo first. Her Hawlucha was faster and hit first with an X-Scissor. Gapopo fired back with a Psycho Cut and one shot at the Flying Luchador Pokemon. Next was her Gourgeist and I sent out my man Ludipopo next. Ludipopo was hit by Trick or Treat on the switch-in, adding in a Ghost type. Ludipopo fired off an Ice Beam next, one-shotting the Gourgeist. Her Tyrantrum was next and Ludipopo decimated the T-Rex thing with an Ice Beam as well. Actress Lady sent out her Aurorus next and Ludipopo does what Ludipopo does best. He hit the Aurorus with a massive surf. The Aurorus survived and set up a light screen. From here, Ludipopo kept up the fight with more surfs as the champion wasted her full restores on her Aurorus. Many surfs later though, Ludipopo was finally able to take out the Aurorus. Ludipopo, you absolute beauty. Actress Lady reveals her Goodra next and Ludipopo used Ice Beam for the super effective move and by the grace of RNGesus, froze the dragon on the spot. Ludipopo, with his inexhaustible tricks and miracles, pulled a godly move out of his sombrero. Ludipopo fired off one final Ice Beam as the Goodra stares from inside of her ice cage. Last was Actress Lady's Gardevoir, and I needed a fresh turn to win the fight. It was time to sack Ludipopo. As much as I hated to do it, it needed to be done. The Gardevoir Mega evolved and hit first with a Shadow Ball. Because of the Trick or Treat earlier from the Gourgeist, the Shadow Ball was super effective and killed Ludipopo instantly. You've been beautiful, Ludipopo. Say hi to Nidopopo, Panpopo, and Flapopo for me. To close the fight, I sent out Sapopo. The Mega Gardevoir hit first with a Shadow Ball, but Sapopo's Iron Head was more than enough to take it out in one go. We beat the champion and took the seat for ourselves. It's just too bad Ludipopo wasn't able to celebrate with us. Imagine what he can pull out of his sombrero. We entered the Hall of Fame with Actress Lady and jolted our name in the history of Kalos. A few days later, we were crowned champion of Kalos and attended a parade held especially for us. And somehow, these guys are being paraded as well. What the hell did they do? Get them off the stage, this is my moment. Before the game could end though, Tall Wanderer Mysterious Man came up to us and challenged us to a battle in order to understand what being a trainer is all about. He sent out a Torkoal and I still had Gapopo in my first slot. No matter, as Gapopo forced 2 Brick Breaks, taking out the Fire Tortoise. He sent out his Golurk next and I stayed with Gapopo. I used the Psycho Cut to take the Golurk's health by half and the Golurk vanished to use Shadow Punch. I didn't mind losing Gapopo here, it's the end of the run. I sent Shampopo next and one Shadow Ball took out the Golurk. Last was a Sigilyph and it was easily taken care of by Shampopo's Shadow Ball. Now, the run has ended for real. Tall Mysterious Man feels freed of his sorrows and apparently that's all it took for his Floette to come back down and forgive him. The end justifies the means, I guess. We watched the emotional scene and the credits roll. Remember guys, if you ever find yourselves in a tight situation, life will always find a way. Take AZ for example. He fought through many hardships and finally achieved happiness once more. It only took him 3,000 years.